Today we're talking about polynomials. So a polynomial is an expression consisting of many terms, and there are different examples like 5, negative 6x, 4x squared minus 1, or 9x cubed plus 4x squared minus x minus 2. Those are all examples of polynomials. Now, polynomials must be written in standard form, and what that means is that they're written in alphabetical order with the highest exponent first. Okay, so you can see in the example here, our highest exponent of 3 goes first, and then 2, and then 1. And make sure you're also focusing on alphabetical order. So for example, we have 3x plus 1 plus 2x squared. The x squared needs to go first because that is the highest exponent, and then 3x, and then 1. Okay, so try number 2. Pause the video, and then come back in a second. So for number 2, you should have gotten 7k to the third plus k squared minus k plus 64. Try 3 and 4. For number 3, you should have gotten w to the third plus 5w squared minus w plus 28. And for number 4, you should have had negative n to the third power plus n plus 24. Now, for 5 and 6, it's a little different here. So we have two variables. We have a and we have b. So the first thing you need to focus on is alphabetical order. So a needs to come first. And then you're going to look at the exponents. So any term with an a needs to go first. It doesn't matter what the b term is as long as there's also an a term. So we're going to start with our a to the third because that's the biggest number, our highest exponent. And then we're going to look, is there an a to a second? Well, there is. So we're going to go ahead and put that one second. And then we have to go and look, is there another a term? Which we do. We have 2ab, so that would be next. And then lastly, we would have the b to the third. So you need to make sure it's staying alphabetically as well as highest exponent. Okay, so all the a's need to go first, and then you can focus on the b's. So try 6. For 6, you should have had negative c to the third minus 7c squared d to the second plus 5d to the third plus 13. Okay, so now there's different ways you can classify polynomials. You can either classify them by the degree or the number of terms. So for the degrees, like this would be like x to the 0, which we all know is equal to 1. Okay, and that'd be like a constant. You would just have 1 point on a graph. If you had an exponent of 1, so it'd be like 5x, you would have a linear degree. So this is basically like the types of graphs you're going to see. So if there's an exponent of just x to the first or a to the first, that's a linear function. It's a straight line. If you have a little exponent of 2, that's a quadratic degree. And we'll be talking about that more later. The 3 is a cubic, and 4 is quartic. We're not really focusing too much on cubic and quartic, but it's good to know. And then for the number of terms, if there's only one term, that's called a monomial, which is what we worked with already. If there's 2 terms, it's a binomial. 3 terms is a trinomial, and 4 plus is a polynomial. Okay, and you can know those by their prefixes, mono, bi, tri, and poly. So some examples. What you're going to do is you're going to take these and classify them by their degree and their number of terms. So for example, 6, there is no variable here, so it's like x to the 0. There's no degree here, so this is going to be a constant. And then it's only one term, so it's a monomial. For negative 2x, I have an x here, and that's x to the first power. So that means this is linear. And it's still only one group of terms there. Nothing's being added, so it's a monomial. Number 9, we have p to the first, so it's linear. But we're also adding something. There's 2 terms here. So this is a binomial. For number 10, we have a 2. And 2 means this is a quadratic function. So it's quadratic. And there's 1, 2, 3 terms here, so this is a trinomial. For number 11, we have a cube here, so that's a cubic function there. And we have 2 terms, so it's a binomial. And then for number 12, our highest exponent is 4, so this is quartic. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 terms, so it's a polynomial. Right, so along with that, we're going to start with adding and subtracting polynomials. So this is where it's super important to remember your like terms. You cannot combine like terms. Okay, this is what we focused on when we're talking about monomials, and it applies here too. So we're going to go ahead and you can underline here. Like, see, these are underlined. I personally like to highlight. So I'm going to highlight all of my x terms in green. I'm going to highlight all of my x squareds in pink. And then I'm going to highlight all of my just numbers, my constants, in yellow. So now I can go ahead and combine those. I'm going to combine all of these. Now make sure you are writing your final answer in that standard form. So you have, since these are only x's, that doesn't matter. We're going to look at the exponent. The 2 exponent needs to come first, and then just the x to the first, and then the constant number. So I'm going to focus on my x squared. So I have a negative x squared plus 2x squared, and a negative 1x squared plus 2x squared is just 1x squared. And then I have my x's, so I have 11x minus 5x. They're both green. 11 minus 5 is 6. And then I have 13 minus 23, and that's a negative 10. And that's my final answer. Now, for the subtraction one, it's a little different because you have to remember that this is being applied to all 3 parts. So it's not just minus 7x and then plus plus. You need to make sure that you are subtracting all of it. I like to rewrite this. So I would rewrite this as minus 7x and then minus 3x squared and then minus 1. Okay, and then bring down the other part too. Okay, so when you're looking at this way, then it's easier because you've already distributed that negative, so you're not forgetting about any pieces. The biggest issue, the biggest mistake is forgetting about parts of the problem. So I'm going to go ahead and, depending on which version you're doing, I'm going to highlight on both of these. So I've highlighted my x squared, so I'm going to highlight my x's. X squared, x's, and then my constants are last. Okay, and then when I combine these, I have my 4 minus 3, which is 1. I have 5 minus 7, which is negative 2. And then my negative 1 is brought down. Okay, so go ahead and practice that here. I'm going to do just one example, and then we're going to go ahead and have you practice the rest. So I have my x here, and I have plus 4x. So I'm doing x plus 4x. Again, it's super helpful to highlight. This is what works for me. Do what works for you. Okay, so I'm doing x plus 4x, and that's 5x. And then 5 minus 7 is negative 2.